tonight?
Yeah, it's a quiet night.
Must be like, I think there's a lot of weddings and all sorts of stuff tonight. Even though the point of having the Zoom is that you can go on it wherever you are, right?
One would think.
Yep.
We're here, busy making
All right.
supper.
Oh,
Yeah,
no barbecuing for you?
not really.
Right here. Okay. All right. So let's see. Tonight's not an easy daf. Okay, where do we leave off? Tanarabana. 5 wide lines down on Samach Beis Amud Beis.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so anyways, we left off yesterday. Stam Agav, I forgot to mention, I think I forgot to mention. That said, so the 2 korbanos of Musaf on Shabbos, they both have to be the same. Right? So both animals have to be the same. So the whole half the Amud was discussing whether that's b'di'evid or just lechatchila. So Rashi has both days because maybe Shabbos is also lechatchila, meaning only lechatchila, but the evidence okay, or both. So yeah, okay, but that's an interesting thing. Fine, new subject. Tanu Rabbanon. So at Hakdama, there's something called shechting a korban outside of the Beis Hamikdash. That's a lav in the Torah. Right? It's a lav in the Torah to shecht a korban outside the Beis Hamikdash. So, but, excuse me, you're only over on that lav if there's a potential to take that korban and bring it. There was no potential to bring that korban, to take that korban, then for that korban to be kosher, then it's not a problem. Like Lamash, what we're going to be discussing on Amud Aleph. Let's say right now you decided to go shech a korban pesach. You decide to take an animal, shechted as a korban pesach. Right? So that's obviously, and you're shechting it right here in Far Rockaway or in Chicago or Phoenix or whatever, right? And it's not in the Beis Hamikdash. So are you chayav for that? So you can't shecht a korban pesach. Korban pesach is not kosher now, so l'chari you should not be chayav. The only thing is that it can be a shlamim. A korban pesach really is just another form of a shlamim. So if it would be a shlamim, then that potentially you could. So then you would be chayav. All right, so again, the basic rule is that you're only chayav on shechting something outside the Beis Hamikdash if there was a potential for that korban to be kosher. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So again, so Tana Rabbanon. Shnei Seira Yom Kippurim sheshachton b'chutz. So let's say the 2 goats of Yom Kippur, you shechted them outside, meaning there's one gets shechted inside the Beis Hamikdash, and that's where all the blood gets sprinkled from, and then one gets thrown off the cliff, right? La Zaza. So that's how you took both of those, and you shechted them outside the Beis Hamikdash. So it's going to depend. Actually, Higral Aleyan, if you shechted it before there was the goyrel on them, chayiv al shneim, then you're going to be chayiv for shechting outside the Beis Hamikdash for both. Higral Aleyan, but if you shechted them outside the Beis Hamikdash only once there was the goyrel, then you're going to be chayiv al shel shem, meaning you're going to be chayiv for the one that we're going to use to sprinkle the blood, or potter al shem al shel azazel, and you're going to be potter for the one that's azazel.
But don't you only shecht one animal, one you throw off? Why you only shecht one?
Right. So the question, that's exactly.
So the other one is not the other one is a stam geschacht, and it's nothing to do with anything.
Right. So that's why. Right. So that's why you potter on the azazel. Very good. That's mamish what it is. What the Gemara is going to ask on it. The Gemara is going to ask on that. But yeah, you're 100% right. Right. Very good. That's That's why you putter on the azazel. See, if you shechted it before they did the goyrel, so the Gemara is going to say either one of those could have potentially been for the korban musaf. But once the goyrel's on it, right? Once the goyrel's on it, so the one that's going to azazel is not. It wasn't meant to be shechted. So therefore, how can you be chayiv for shechita b'chutz? But the one that was going to be used for the sprinkling of the blood, so that one you would be chayiv for.
Now it can't go to Azazel.
So what? But still, it's not. You didn't shecht some. The whole issur is to take something that should have been shechted in the Beis Hamikdash. You shechted outside the Beis Hamikdash. So the azazel wasn't supposed to be shechted in the
And
Beis
you're not
Hamikdash.
taking from Amud Hegdash?
That, yeah, nobody says you're getting the Tzaddik of the Year award for doing this, but you're not, right? But you're not going to be chayiv al shechutei chutz, which we're going to see in Vita. Then maybe what you're saying, Naftali, is correct. Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara says, actually, higrol aleim chayiv al shneim. So before you did the goyrel, you chayiv on both. Lamai chazu. And what are they fitting for? Meaning, what would you do with these two seirim, these two goats, that there would be a good korban? So Amar Rav Chisda, hoil b'roi l'seir nasa b'chutz. Since it's roi to the seir that's nasa b'chutz, right? Meaning there was another seir that doesn't get much attention. He must not have davened too much for. He didn't get too much attention. This third goat, there is a third goat on Yom Kippur, right? And that's shechted on the outside, right? So Mamela, one of these goats could have potentially be used for that. So therefore, if you shecht it outside, so then you're going to be over. Fine, okay. And how come the seir that's meant to be brought inside, which we use the blood for to sprinkle in the Kodshim and on the paroiches, and the mizbeach, the mechusar hagrala, because it didn't have the goyrel, the seir nasa b'chutz nami. Right, so how come you're not chayiv on one of the seirim, one of the goats? Because it's not mechusar hagrala, because it's it's missing the goyrel. So if it's missing the goyrel, it doesn't have any sort of kedusha. So the seir nasa b'chutz nami, it's missing the avodas hayom, meaning you only have that goat. The chiyuv to shech that goat only kicks in during the order of the avoid of the Beis Hamikdash or Yom Kippur, and that order has not been done yet. He shechted away before that order, so it's not yet the time to shecht this goat. That him shechting it outside would be chayiv. So Gemara answers, because Rav Chisda ain't mechusar zman l'bay b'yoyim. No, there's no such thing as mechusar zman for that day. Meaning we don't cut it up and say, oh, you're shechting this goat that you have to shech this goat at this in this specific time, and since you did it too early, therefore it wasn't yet required to be shechted, so therefore you're not chayav for shechting it outside. He says no, as long as that day it's supposed to be shechted, right? Then that's considered like it's right to be shechted, and if you shecht it outside the Beis Hamikdash, you're going to be chayav, right?
Yeah, Yaakov.
Yeah.
Why is the Gemara and the Mishnah even call this Seir Nasa B'chutz? Why doesn't it call it the Musaf? Is there a point to this?
I don't know. I'm not sure. When I learned it originally, it threw me off a little bit. I wasn't sure what's going on here.
It seems like it's trying to say that it has just as much kedusha as the one whose dam went into the
maybe.
Who says it happens to be.
Who says it doesn't?
Yeah.
Maybe.
One would think that it doesn't, because it doesn't go into the Kodesh. Gemara is saying, no, it just happens to be Nasa B'chutz. It's the same kedusha.
I hear. I don't know. If that's what you're saying, that the Chiddush is, okay, I hear that being the Chiddush. Yeah, fine. So Amar Ravina, Hashta da Amar Rav Chisda. Now the Rav Chisda said, Mechusar hagrala ki mechusar ma'isa dami. Right, because what do we say? That, well, how come how come Rav Chisda said that before the goyrel, you chayav on both of them? Right? Why? Because it's missing the maisa. Meaning there was no maisa there. What's the goyrel? All you do is you decide which goat goes to where, and you put it down. There's no maisa in the korban. So you're not going to be mechusar golas mechusar maisa. It's as if you're missing the maisa. right? Yeah, and again, there's nothing done with the goats with the goyrel. Yeah, so it's as if it didn't have it, and then you're gonna be chayiv. Yeah.
I don't really understand any of this. Why
Okay,
isn't it pashut?
That's pretty. You got a lot of company.
Why isn't it just simply that since it was bought from the Trumas Halishka, you're dealing with two animals that have kache aguf. Kache aguf. It's also shechted bechutz. Why does it need to be? Because it's bechutz or hagrala, any of this. You have two animals that are kache kedushas and kedushas aguf. You shech them outside. That's us.
Right.
Well, what is all this deal here? Why do we need all of this fundus?
I'm not sure. It seems like it has to be specific meisim. You have to pin it down more. You're making it like as long as it's Kodesh, it's meant to somewhere at some point be shechted in the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara is clearly not learning like that. The Gemara is clearly learning that it has to mamish be almost earmarked for the korban. Why? I don't know. But it seems like it has to have epis. It has to be chal on it that this thing was supposed to be used as a korban. And until you have that, you're not going to be chayiv. Why? I don't know. Right? So the Gemara is saying now, what did Rav Chisda say? That if you shechted the two goats before the goyrel, you're chayiv. Right? Why? So you have to say because potentially it could have been used as the korban musaf. Why don't you just say that it's because it's going to have the goyrel? Elamai, he doesn't care about the goyrel. Right? The girl is not it's not a ma'aseh begufa, right? I'm saying he didn't have the girl yet. So since he didn't have the girl, there's no ma'aseh of it. Why don't he just say that? Elamai, that's not a requirement. So anyway, so that's what he's saying. So if it didn't have the girl, it didn't have any ma'aseh, and they were not earmarked yet to be brought. So if you shechted a shlamim before the doors opened, right? So that's possible. That's sort of like going to davening, before the nets, because before the shuls open or something, right? I don't know if it's exactly a mashal like that, but anyways, he ran out of patience for the doors to open to the Beis Hamikdash, and he shechted it, right? So they're puzzle. Shenemar v'shachtu pesach oil ma'id. You shechted at the door of oil ma'id. There's manshu pesuach. Only when the door is open, that's when you're going to be chayiv for shechting outside, right? The loib is manchu null, but not when it's locked. And shachton bechutz, koydem sheniftechu dlases hechel. But let's say you shechted them outside before they opened up the doors to the hechel. Potter you potter. My timer mechuser psicha ke mechuser ma'aser dami. Because if the doors are not open yet, then it's as if there was no ma'aser to make it that these animals were chayiv to be brought. Hear what he's saying? He's saying, again, the rule that we have to understand here, again, is that until the animals have something done to them that says that they should be brought into the Beis Hamikdash and shechted, till there's something. It's not enough to just say, I'm taking these animals and bringing them as a korban, and then if you shecht them outside, you're chayiv. That's not enough. There has to be something done to them or about them that says specifically that they're going to be used as a korban. So what happens if the doors are locked to the Beis Hamikdash? So it's not even, you didn't even have the potential to shech these animals in the Beis Hamikdash because the doors were closed.
But isn't that the sale here? Didn't we say yesterday you have to buy two at the same time, same height?
Yeah, but that's just to specify which ones they are, but wasn't chal on them yet a chiyuv in the Beis Hamikdash.
Saying the whole sale.
Let's say a guy buys two CM and then he finds two nicer ones besides. So what? So the other ones, forget about it.
No, I would argue that Naftali's really right because they are bought with the Trumas Halishka.
That's if he bought two animals that he didn't label yet for anything.
Yeah, but they are bought from the Trumas Halishka. They're bought from the Lishka.
No.
They're Kodshim. You can't just throw them off because you find two nicer ones.
No, I'm not saying you're throwing them off, but I'm not saying you have to use them either.
What do you use them for? They're kache aguf from Trumas Halishka.
They could be in the kache inventory.
Yeah. Or use it for the
The
time
seer?
the next day.
There's something
Yeah.
you'll find something. Yeah, the next time you need, you have it ready. You'll designate what it should be.
Okay.
I don't know, but either way, but the point of the Gemara is saying that's what we have to get from this sugya is that there has to be a ma'isa done on the animals in order to require them to be chayiv in shechita, and then if you shechted them outside the Beis Hamikdash, then you're liable. So if the doors to the Beis Hamikdash are closed, you didn't have the ability to even bring the korbanos into the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, you're not going to be chayiv. See, that's what the Gemara is saying. Mechusar psicha is like mechusar ma'isa. Not opening the door is like not having a ma'isa. So the Gemara says,
Could it be? Easy question. I'm sorry. Could it be? Let's say you want to bring a chatas, and the doors are closed. I designate this animal to be a chatas before the doors are open. One thing should have nothing to do with the other. Or you're saying that that's an individual korban, and this is the tzibur.
That could be. I don't know. That I hear your point. But I think it's just when you didn't have the opportunity, you didn't even have the ability to bring it in the Beis Hamikdash. So then, Mamela, how can you be chayiv?
Yeah, so here you could say the same thing. I didn't have an opportunity to bring the chatas. Even the Beis Hamikdash is closed. Everything's closed. I just found a good animal. I said, oh, this is going to be good for that chatas. And then it's not.
And then you
shecht
shechted.
The Beis Hamikdash is closed. Then shechted outside. So what does that mean?
And a chanami, I don't know. Would you be chayiv?
Not?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'm no expert.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just saying. If you're saying, okay, all right. So I'm just trying to do this Gemara.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Okay, so
Why
let's
would
see
that
that.
not be shechted?
What?
I'm very confused. Why would that not be shechted?
Because you didn't do any ma'isa yet for it to be. The Beis Hamikdash was closed.
Oh, when the Beis Hamikdash was closed. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, so then let's see 3 lines. So we all know that hoyel is, right? Hoyel, something this, right? Hoyel, it's potential that A could be, not that wasn't a way to say it. Hoyel, since there could be A, therefore there could be B, right? So what did Rav Chisda say? Right? Well, how come you're chayiv for shechting the 2 goats before the goyrel? Even though right then and there they're not right to do any sort of avodah with them because you didn't yet do the goyrel, right? So because it's possible that either one of these animals could be brought as the korban musaf, right? So therefore we're going to be chayiv. So that means he holds this thing of hoyel. Since it's possible that this animal could go to the korban musaf, therefore you're going to be chayiv. So does he really hold of hoyel? The pesach shechted b'chutz. Like we mentioned before, we have the korban pesach that's shechted on the outside. Meaning you're sitting at home and you decide, you know what, for this barbecue tonight, Sunday night barbecue, I'm making a korban pesach. Right? So he shechted b'chutz during the rest of the year. Lishmoi potter. If you shechted mamish lishma, this is one of those rare examples where if you do something lishma, it's actually going to get you off the hook, right? If you shechted lishma, so that's a joke. So therefore, you're potter. Shaloi lishmai, but if you shechted it shaloi lishmai, which is you forgot, you decided you're shechting this as a korban pesach, and then you spaced out, and then you just shechted it. So then it was a pesach shaloi lishmai. Now you're going to be chayiv because it's a shlamim. It's a regular shlamim, and since you had the potential to bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, then you're going to be chayiv. So time of the shaloi lishmai. That's mashma only because you specifically shechted it shaloi lishmai, not the way I said it. I said it, you stam shechted it. Here it's mashma that you shechted it shaloi lishmai. Hastama, but if you did it stam, then lishmaihu, that would be considered lishmaihu potter. Right? So why you should say that? Why don't you say hayol? Since it's possible that you could have brought it shaloi lishmai. In the inside, right? Yeah, because it's possible you could have brought it shaloi lishmai. So Gemara answers hachi hashta hasam by akira. No, there by Pesach you need to uproot it mamish. You have to have it in your head that you're uprooting it. Hi loy by akira. But here by Yom Kippur you don't need to specifically uproot it, right? So the mela it's not. Therefore, you could still say oil. Fine. So Rabba bar Shimi masnilu b'derabba, right? Rabba bar Shimi taught these things, okay, right? In the name of Rabba, right? V'kashale, the Rabba, and he had a steer from Rabba to Rabba, Mashani Kedushin, and he answered the way we answered it. So he had a different version. It wasn't Rav Chisda, it was Rabba. Kiyasa Rav Dimi, Amar Rav Yirmiyah, Amar Rav Yochanan, Pesach sheshachtu b'chutz b'shari ma'aseh. If you take a korban pesach and you shechted it outside the Beis Hamikdash all the rest of the year, then bein l'shmoi, bein shaloi l'shmoi, potter. So that is a different opinion. The first opinion was that if you do it l'shmoi, you potter, shaloi l'shmoi, you chayev. Here, he's saying whether it's l'shma, whether it's not l'shma, you're going to be potter.
I thought you could check the pesach outside it. Didn't we learn that? We learned from Safin. I thought we.
As we shall on the habayis. Then that has in the Beis Hamikdash from habayis. Yeah, I think.
Safin that you don't have to. Oh.
No, it has to be shechted on the habayis. Yeah. Okay. So Amar Avdimi, Amrisa l'shmai tzakmeidu Rav Yirmiyah bishlam l'shmai. So it's good l'shmai the haloi chazilei, because it's not roy to be into the Beis Hamikdash, right? Because you're shechting a korban pesach in the middle of the year, so it's not roy. So why should you be chayiv for shechting it outside? Ela shaloi l'shmai amai. How come you're chayiv if you did it shaloi l'shmai? It's a korban shlamim, right? Hachazi shaloi l'shmai b'fnim. You can do a shaloi l'shmai b'fnim, right? It's a korban shlamim. Famrali, and he said to me, akira schutz lav shma akira. Uprooting it outside is not considered uprooting it, right? Meaning that's not enough to uproot it. It's going to still retain its korban pesach status, and therefore, since it's not the time to be makar with korban pesach, so therefore you're going to be potter. Yeah, so that's the second shot.
All those gemaras we had about changing a chatas oif l'mashal to an oila, that's fine. That all has to be done on the harabai in the
sounds
azar.
like according to this shita, sounds like it's got to be done in the.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know what the pshat is.
But I just calling it a name, kriyas shame of a nedava l'mashal. We done it chutz la'aretz. Doesn't need to be anywhere near. And that's chal. Arei alai, whatever. That's chal. It becomes an oila.
Yeah.
So why should akira be any different?
Enochanami. I don't know. I wish I had some semblance of understanding of when these things work and when they don't work, but sorry. So anyway, so weiter. Pesach sheshachtu b'chutz b'shari ma'aseh. A pesach that gets shechted on the outside all the rest of the days of the year. Bein l'shmai, bein shaloi l'shmai, chayev. Whether it's shaloi l'shmai or whether it's l'shma or shaloi l'shma, you chayev. Okay, so now this is the third opinion, right? We had the first opinion was l'shma potter, shaloi l'shma chayev. The second opinion is whether it was l'shma, whether it was shaloi l'shma potter. This sheet is the other way. Whether it was l'shma, whether it was shaloi l'shma, you chayev. Vafilu, so Gemara says vafilu l'shma, even if you shechted l'shma, so basically you're taking a korban pesach on Gimel Tammuz today, and you're shechting it l'shem korban pesach right over here in Chutz La'aretz, and you're chayev, right? Why? But now, if something is missing time, meaning if you bring a korban when it's not the right time, bein begufay, whether it's because it itself is not yet, meaning Reb Rav, this is what we're learning in the morning, that 8 days old, if you bring an animal before it's 8 days old, you shecht an animal less than 8 days old, right? That's not roy. You're not going to be chayev on that for shechting outside the Beis Hamikdash. Bein b'pailim, whether the owners are not ready yet. Be'ezu mechusar zman b'pailim. What's called mechusar zman b'pailim? So hazov v'yaledes ha'matzayra shekri v'chatasam v'ashom b'chutz. Right? Let's say the zov needs 7 clean days, and the zova and yaledes and matzayra, and they bring their korban after the 4th day. So what? That's not a joke. That's not a real korban. It's not at the time. Like we're saying, it has to be the korban. In order to be chayiv for shechting the korban outside the Beis Hamikdash, it has to be at the time when the korban is supposed to be brought. So if the korban is less than 8 days old, that's the minimum amount of days an animal needs to be before you can bring it for a korban. Or zav yeledes, that you bring it in middle of the 7 clean days. So you're potter because it was not right to be a proper korban. Oile saying the shlamim b'chutz, but the oilas and the shlamim b'chutz chayavin. Yeah, but then that you chayav, right? Meaning even though that would not, they would have to bring another korban, right? But they're still going to be chayav. Because why? Because you could bring them as a korban nedava, right? The other korbanos you can't bring as a nedava. This you could bring. These you can bring as a present. So since they can be brought as a present, so even though they're not right for them because they weren't yet right to bring these korbanos, but at least there could be a nedava. So therefore they'll be chayav. What are you saying?
What about a mila before the 8th day? How does that work? Let's say the guy does it in the middle of the week. It's after 3 days, 4 days. How does that affect?
Yes, no, he needs hatafas dam bris.
So you need to do something later again. So
you'd have to do. You'd have to
with the korban. It's like nothing. So maybe the meal will be okay.
Right.
Okay.
So very good. So if the korban can be brought as a potential nedava, so then you're going to be chayav because there was a potential for this korban to be kosher. But if you couldn't, there was no way to get this korban to be kosher. You're not going to be chayav for shechting it outside because it's like shechting any random animal outside, right? This is only telling us for l'shmoi. But if you do it shaloi l'shmoi, then he's chayiv, right? Because if you bring it shaloi l'shmoi, then it's possible. Then it's like an adava. So therefore you're going to be chayiv. Yeah, the shmoi miya potter. But if you did it l'shma, then you're going to be potter. Amai. Why? Why don't you say no? Maybe you could have potentially brought this animal shaloi l'shmoi when it was inside, and it would be a kosher korban. Why don't you say that? So Gemara says same text. There you need an akira, right? If something's made is supposed to be an asham, right? So you have to actually consciously uproot it. Pesach shlamim. So the Pesach, the rest of the year is a korban shlamim, right? So and that happens without any sort of making designations. Fine. So basically, we have 3 shittas. Yeah, we had 3 shittas about shechting a Pesach shaloi bezmana, right? So the first shitta was l'shmoi is potter, shaloi l'shmoi is chayiv. Second shitta was shaloi l'shmoi and l'shmoi are potter. Third shita is l'shmoi and shaloi l'shmoi is chayiv. Fine. Rav Ashi, if anybody's not getting this, it's not easy. I can't say I get it either, but at least I can fool. Maybe I can fool you, but no, I'm saying it's not pushing. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's going to last us another couple of days. That's as far. So far, I mean, it's for sure the next 2 days, but maybe more. Anyways, so Rav Ashi masni chayiv kedamrina. Rav Ashi says that it's chayiv, right? It's gonna, like we said, Rav Yirmi Vedifti masni potter, and Rav Yirmi Vedifti said no, that it's potter. Whichever way you do the Pesach, it's going to be potter. Because Savar Pesach b'shayim as akira. Because he holds that the korban Pesach needs an actual akira, and since you didn't do the akira, and since you didn't uproot it from one thing to the other, so then it's going to be potter. Akira schutz loishma akira. And if you ikar it outside the Beis Hamikdash, that's not called an akira. So therefore, it's a korban Pesach that's puzzle, and therefore you're not going to be chayiv for shechting it outside. And he disagrees with Rav Chalki Batuvi. Fine. Amar, so that's just like a chazara. Amar Amar, Mishihigral Alayim. So what do we say? That when you did the goyrol, you're chayiv ashal shem upater ashal zazel. Right? You're chayiv for the one that's going to be shechted in order to take the blood and sprinkle it all over the Beis Hamikdash. And you're pater from the azazel. Why do we say you're pater from azazel? Because the azazel is not meant to be shechted anyway. So why should you be chayiv for shechting it outside? So Tana Rabbanon, yeah, how do we know this? Because ish mi beis Yisrael, if any man from Klal Yisrael asher yishchat shor oy kesav oy eis b'machana oy asher yishchat michutz lamachana, if you shecht it in the camp, or outside the camp. And he didn't bring his korban in front of Hashem. Right? That's the pasuk. That's the pasuk that tells us that you're not allowed to shecht anything outside of Beis Hamikdash. On Tamid Beis, oy korban. So what is? I'm saying e. Right? E korban. If we would say korban, shemeani afilu kodshim bedek habayis. So then it means any korban, which means even if this kodshim bedek habayis, right? There's two different types of kodshim. There's kodshe, what is it called? Kodshim, what is it called? Kodshe, what? If you're being makdish that you're actually going to make the Kodshim is beach. Good, yeah, thank you. Kodshim is beach, right? And then you have kodshim bedek habayis, which is that anybody can donate any animal they want to the Beis Hamikdash. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to use that animal for a mizbeh, for a korban. They may decide to use that animal to chase people out of the Beis Hamikdash when they want to close the doors. I don't know, whatever it is they're going to do, right? So maybe if you took one of those animals and shechted it outside, you'd be chayiv. So again, korban shemei afilu kodshim bedek habayis shenikra korban, because those are also called korban. Ke'inyan shenemar, as it says, v'nikra is korban Hashem, and you bring the korban v'nakriv is korban Hashem. Yeah. So Talmud Loimar, the pasuk tells you pesach hayal moed lo yaviu, and they didn't bring it into the pesach hayal moed. Kol haroy le pesach hayal moed chayav lo b'chutz. Anything that's roy to bring it into the door of the Oyel Moed, you chayav alav if you shecht it outside. Kol she'eina roy lepesach Oyel Moed, but anything that's not roy to go into the opening of the Oyel Moed, ein chayav alav b'chutz. You're not chayav on to shecht it outside. Oitzi elu, so I'm going to exclude these she'ein roy lepesach Oyel Moed that are not roy to go in the Oyel Moed because they're meant for the upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash. They're not meant for the mizbech. One second. But I'm not going to exclude the paras chatos, the power of the Yom Kippur. Those are right to come into the Pesach Hamayim. That's what you would think. So Tamiloyim Lashem. So therefore it says Lashem. Mishim Yuchad and Lashem. It comes only things that are meyuchid, animals that are meyuchid for Hashem. Yotzu Elu. It comes to exclude these that it's not meyuchad for Hashem. Yeah. What are you saying, Gershon?
No, go back.
Okay, so basically we're saying that it has to be mamish, the animals that are meyuchad for Hashem. Right, Rebbeinu, that's what you were saying before. It's a mishtalech, it's not meyuchad for Hashem, because it's just going to be thrown off the cliff. So then the Gemara says, V'la Hashem, l'haitzihu. Does the word Lashem come to exclude? Or I'll ask you a stira. We're going to bring a raya where the word Lashem includes. Yerotze lekorban isha Lashem. This is talking about that an animal on the 8th day is a korban Lashem, meaning only once the animal's alive for 8 days can it be a kosher korban. Elu ishim, right? That's talking about the fires. How do you know that you're not allowed to be makdish an animal missing the time, which is less than 8 days old? Korban Lashem says a korban Lashem. The rabbi sira mishtaleach. It's coming to include a sira mishtaleach, which is that even a sira mishtaleach, which is not going to be shechted, also can't be younger than 8 days. So you see here that the Lashem is actually coming to include something, not exclude. Before we just said Lashem is coming to exclude, and here Lashem is coming to include Samarava, no, Hasam, Minyana de Krova, Hacham, Minyana de Krova. They both have to be, you have to darshan them based out on what the pasuk is trying to tell you. Hasam, Del Pesach, the rabbi is there, the words, the El Pesach to the door is coming to include. Right? So it's going to include the La'azazel, Lashem, Lahaitzi, and then the word Lashem comes to exclude it. Hacha, the Isha, the Isha, sorry, Lahaitzi, the word Isha is coming to exclude the Azazel. Lashem, the rabbi said, and Lashem is coming to tell you, no, you got to make sure that the Azazel goat has to be less than 8 days. Meaning, in the first shot, when it's coming to include the Azazel, So we're saying, okay, but it's gonna. You'd think that you're including the azazel that you'd be chayav for shechting it outside. So Lashem tells you no, it's not, because lamaisa it's not going to be shechted inside. So therefore, you're not going to be chayav for shechting it outside. But here, for the 8-day-old, that we're saying that it does include the azazel. Fine. So Taima, the Rabbi Rachmana, that's only because the Torah included it. Haloi Rabbi, but if it didn't include it, so I would have thought that the Sir Mishtaleach is Kodesh even less than 8 days old. The goyrel only works on goats that potentially could have been shechted, right? It's a pashat akasha. I don't know if anybody didn't ask it. I should have asked it myself. Meaning, when you take the two goats, let's say that when they had to be the same age and the same size and the same everything. So let's say you took a 4-day-old goat. So we're saying, if not for the word Lashem, I would have said that the goat is, you can use the goat, right? But how do you know? What happens if the goyrel goes on, the goyrel is going to go on to one of the goats that's less than 8 days old, the one that's going to be shechted, which is no good.
But on the 4-day, it can't be geschachten, so it's not qualified.
Right, exactly. That's exactly the Gemara's kasha. What's your havamina? What's your havamina? In the havamina, before the pasuk comes to tell you Lashem that even an azazel goat needs to be 8 days old. That's mashma. If the pasuk wouldn't have said it, I would have thought that the azazel goat can be less than 8 days old. That's very nice, but its partner goat that's going to get the Lashem is also going to be less than 8 days old, and that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And even if you say you take, and even if you say you take 2 different age goats, but you have the goyrel has to have the ability for each goat to go. That's right. Has to be direct. You don't have that. You don't have that, right? Right, it has to be roy l'shem. So Rabbi Yosef, Hamani, who is this Hanan HaMitzri? It's Hanan the Mitzri. Yet the Tanya, Hanan the Mitzri Yomer, Afilu Dam, because even if there's blood already in the kais, meaning you already shechted the goat, right? And you got the 2 goats. One's going to be for Azazel, one is going to be for shechted. And they filled up the kais with blood. Yeah? And then the Azazel dies. So now what do? You got the cup ready to roll for the Kohen Gadol to sprinkle it, and then somebody tells him that the Azazel goat had a heart attack and it's no longer alive. So now what? She says, maybe chaveroi umazavaglo. You just bring another goat and you hook it up, right? So that means that you don't need to be. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. You can bring it in later. So therefore, to him, it's a chiddush that has to still be 8 days old. What do you say?
But then there's no gyro if you're just bringing one in from left.
Correct. That's exactly what he's saying. That's exactly. That's what Hanan HaMitzri holds, that the gyro is not a necessity. He holds it's not a necessity.
He holds that's not a necessity. So why we make such a big deal about it?
Correct. Right. Very good. So the Gemara says, that's only because he doesn't hold the tchuyin. I mean, he doesn't hold that once you knock off the korban, it's knocked off. The lesle hagrola mishamasle, but did he say that he doesn't have a goyrel? Right? Who says that he told you you don't do goyrel?
Is this a b'diavad lechatchilat?
I don't know.
Or is b'diavad it's dochui? Fine. You did the hagrola. Now there's a problem. So you bring another goat. You don't need a new hagrola.
Correct. And he holds it to
you still need the hagrola.
But then it's not valid. The girl is not valid.
There was a girl already. The girl was valid.
Okay, but
you have
a new animal. Not on the right animal. Not on the right animal.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you're going to use a substitute. So there was no girl in effect. There was no girl that affects the second substitute.
Yeah, because you can't push off the
Lashem. Right. You're just bringing in a pitcher from left field. You're not. He was never.
The avodah was done. The avodah of Hagrola was done.
Yeah.
And now we have a problem.
Then the second animal that's supposed to go away dies. So what do? You're taking a substitute. The substitute never sat through the gyro. Does it need that process? I'm asking.
He says it doesn't.
Need that process.
So that he said it doesn't, but
So
doesn't
then-
mean
so
that
then why do we
lechatchila
make it
you
the
don't need
gyro?
hagrala.
So then obviously you don't need a gyro.
Why?
Just as
Meichetesi.
a ceremony.
Well, it wasn't ceremonial when you did it. It was a real hagrala.
Avada, good, but that's like a ceremony. Now that even though you did it and we couldn't
What?
fulfill
Why?
what
Well,
it
no,
does,
no, no,
we
no,
could-
no,
because
no.
the second animal had a heart attack. He never got to.
The fact
He's
that-
never gone out to Lazazel. He's gone.
No. Did you have a good hagrala originally?
Yeah, but no,
But
but
not on
problem is
not on the
this-
right animals.
Once
So what?
this animal dies,
Not on the
Gershon, once this
effective
animal dies,
Yeah.
Once-
Mevatel the
once-
whole girl. You got to
once this animal dies, that cup of blood now is not right.
From the Lashem.
For the Lashem, it's no
From
good. The blood
yeah,
that is
Hashem
holding
is
it
not
Why?
right because
not-
Okay,
Because
one
you-
second. Can I hear the rabbi speak, if that's okay?
because it's not a, what do you call it? If you held it in a cup and it doesn't have its counterpart alive, then the gut, it's no good.
When it went into the cup, was it good?
Yes.
So now it's a problem of techuyin. If you're not going to be madcha, the perfectly good carbon, because it's usher to do so.
Right, so it's
So then,
tchuya.
then which one's little chatchila, which one's a b'diavad?
Right,
that's
so
fine.
it's tchuya. It's tchuya.
Fine, but
So-
it doesn't tell me that you
but he
don't need a
doesn't hold the
lechatchila agrala.
He doesn't hold of tchuya, right? Hanan Mitzri
It
doesn't
doesn't
hold
hold
of
with madcha de Lashem because you have a problem with the lazaf. You can't be madcha Lashem,
right?
right? So now we're in a matzav of b'diavad. So b'diavad,
Right.
what do? So you bring a new animal. It's the lesser of two evils, if you want to call it
No,
that.
because there was no goyrel. There was no goyrel.
The girdle was fine when it was done.
Yeah, but there was no goyrel on the animal that you're sending off to the Azazel now.
Okay, and there was a girdle on the other one. So we're going to get rid of the other one that there was a girdle on. It was Kodshim, Mizbeach, it was everything. It was shechted, it had Kabbalah Saddam. You're going to get rid of a perfectly good carbon because this animal had no agrala. He had everything good up until now.
Right, but now you don't have. Now you're using an animal for throwing off the cliff that did not have a goyrel on it.
Good,
That's
that's
what
like
the Gemara
asking
says.
any b'diavad in halacha. How can you have a b'diavad? There's a way to do it lechatchila. We should throw out all our pots and pans because every shaila is a b'diavad. Throw out everything, get new
No.
pots and pans every day.
Let's finish the daf and you guys can fight about this afterwards.
Exactly.
That's-
You want to throw out your pots and pans on your own time.
He was.
I don't want to.
He's asking a kasha having to do a pshat. If he was asking kasha not pshat, then I would blow him off. I'm just saying. There's differences in the kashas. Now, with the pot and pans, he's getting a little carried away. So you're right. So we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. Okay. So, anyways, so again, let's back up 4 lines. Amar Rav Yosef, Hamani Chanana Mitzri. It's Chanana Mitzri. The Tanya Chanana Mitzri Omer. Afilu dam bekois. Even if there's blood in the cup, and then the other animal, meaning the Azazel one, dies. Maybe chaveiro imazavagla. You just bring another animal and you hook it up with the one for the blood, and then it works, right? So according to him, you're gonna need the word Hashem to include this Azazel, right? We thought maybe you don't need it because the Azazel goat has to be 8 days old, because otherwise its partner it won't work, right? Because the one that's going to be shechted for Hashem has to be 8 days old. So this one also has to be 8 days old. No, Chanan Yosef has a scenario where it won't be 8 days old. So Gemara says, well, okay, so the reason why Chanan Mitzi says, because he doesn't hold the tchuyin, meaning this cup of blood became puzzle because it didn't have a goat that was alive to be sent off the cliff. So it became puzzle for 5 minutes till they got a new goat. So he holds that, so there's a concept that once something becomes puzzle for the Beis Hamikdash, then it's gone and you have to bring another one. So Chanan Mitzri holds, no, it's not gone. It's temporarily puzzle. Once you make it back to kosher again by getting another goat to send off the cliff, then the blood becomes kosher again. Good, so he doesn't hold the tchuyin. But the Leslie Hagrala, Mishamazli, how do you know he doesn't hold the Hagrala? Right? Dilma, right? Maybe they Maisi Umagro, maybe they bring 2 new goats and they do a new gyral, and then he brings the blood. So okay, so we slug that up. So Elamar Yosef, Hamani Reb Shimon, this is talking about Reb Shimon. The Tanya Meis Echad Mehen. If one of the goats dies, maybe Chaveira Shaloi B'Hagrala. You bring another goat without a gyral. Different Reb Shimon. That's what Reb Shimon holds. Ravina Amar Kigoin Shehumam v'chilulu al acher. What happened is that the Azazel became a balmum, right? And then he was paided chilulu al acher. He got a new one. Now, since he was paided, right? Therefore, it's as if there was a girl done, because all you did was swap out the kedusha. Meaning, if one goat dies, so when you bring a new goat, you can't say that the girl went on it. But if one goat became a balmum, so what you say is you say whatever kedusha was on this goat, we're transferring on to the next goat. So therefore, it's as if there was a girl. Fine. When we know tamer the pasal be'muma, right? How do you know that a mum is pasal for Azazel? Right? How do you know? Because again, Azazel is not being shechted. We're just throwing it off the cliff anyways. So who says a mum causes it a problem? The Tanya, the Isha, leisitnu mehem, right? And you don't make them, and you don't have them in the fire. Elu hachalavim. That's talking about the chaylev that's going to be burned. Elu alakulan. That only tells you that all the chaylev that's going to go onto the mizbeach miktsasa minayin. How do you know that even if there's a part, it tells you from them, yeah, mizbeach, and then it says mizbeach zuzikas dam. That's the throwing the dam. Lashem and l'rabbi sira mishtalech, and Lashem comes to include the sira mishtalech, right, which tells you that it has to be, it cannot be a balmum, it has to be perfect, right? Yeah, meaning everything that's done in the Kodshim in the mizbeach. The mizbeach, and even the stuff that's going to be thrown on to the mizbeach at night, all the parts of the animals that don't get eaten, none of it can come from anything having to do with balmum, including a sir mishtaleh. Fine. So now the Gemara says, "V'yitzrich l'michta balmum, v'yitzrich l'michta mechutz zman," and it needs to say that a balmum, the sir mishtaleh, can't be a balmum, and we also need to say that it's not going to be missing mizman, meaning that you can't use a sir mishtalech less than 8 days old. Because if the Torah is going to say that it's missing time, because the time you didn't get the time yet. Have a balmum, but a balmum the matis mani, ema loy. Maybe that's fine. It's a kosher animal. It just has a mum. Because of a balmum, and if the Torah would have said mum mishum demoyas, because that's disgusting. You can't use a animal that has a mum for anything having to do with the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash. On mechusas man the loymos, mechusas man, if it's just less than 8 days old, that's not disgusting. Emaloi. So I would say that maybe it's not possible. Tzrichos, so that's why you need to say both. Fine. Okay, on to Amud Aleph. Rava Amari is a different shot, right? A third shot. Why you have to tell us that the Azazel has to be a minimum of 8 days old. A wild case. You're talking about where he had a chayla in his house who needed to eat on Yom Kippur. There's a halacha that says that a mother and a child cannot be schechted on the same day. Animals we're talking about. A mother and a child cannot be schechted on the same day. Right? So what happens?
You sure that was animals, Tiago?
That's why I said it, parrots. I knew where you were going. So, right. So a mother and a baby cannot be shechted on the same day. So how are you getting that on Yom Kippur? That a goat that its mother was shechted on Yom Kippur. So the only way you're going to find that case is if you needed the mother to feed somebody who was sick on Yom Kippur. Now you got a goat that it's the baby that's supposed to be that you need it for the Beis Hamikdash. So now what do? You're not allowed to shechted. It's the issur daraisa to shechted because you already shechted the mother. Again, Rava Amar going he had somebody sick in his house for shochat ima b'yom kippur, and he shechted the mother on Yom Kippur. And therefore, you would think that you still can't use the Azazel goat, right? So right, so that's what's telling you that you can't use. You're not allowed to use it. Right. So Gemara says, "V'chiyah gavna mi issur." Would you say that it's issur? Right. Meaning you're not shechting the animal; you're throwing it off a cliff. Right. It's an issur to shecht a mother and a child on the same day. Doesn't say who says it's an issur to shecht and throw it off the cliff. When the Torah says don't shechted, that's not shechted to throw it off the cliff. So Gemara's heads, they said in Marava, and Eretz Yisrael, throwing it off the roof, not the roof, the cliff is the equivalent of the shechita, and therefore you're still not allowed to do it. Right? And that's what it means. That's what mechusar zman means. That is a case of mechusar zman, where you need to wait another day before you be able to use this goat. It's not the mechusar zman. So the first two pshat, the mechusar zman means the animal's less than 8 days old, you're not allowed to use it to throw it off the cliff. And this one was saying, no, mechusar zman is that you can't shecht it today because its mother was already shechted, so therefore it's missing the zman. Okay, it's a rough daf. I hope we tried to make it semi-understandable. All right, good to know.
Yaakov, Gershon doesn't need any because he got rid of all his pots and pans. He doesn't need the Hagala anymore.
Parrots. I have to apologize, Parrots. I'm tripled up on painkillers. I'm having a really tough time. When I asked it, I was having a little problem with whatever, but now I see at the end of the Gemara here does the same thing. The pasuk of Leisishchatu is male, the father and son. And the Gemara says Ima, he mixes in basa b'chalav. So I'm happy at least I was somewhat mixed in pots and pans over here too.
See, that's why you should always wait till the end.
Parrots, I hope you like me. I was a little confused tonight.
Altidag, I'm on muscle relaxants and other things as well.
Oy vey, what happened to you?
Parrots is still probing seam from last night on the parrot.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a tough parrot.
What, after the beer, then the scotch, you went to bourbon and then vodka and then whatever?
Abba's house.
You should never finish off with tequila, Parrots. It's bad for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I think after I asked it, I think that what I was asking was really the next kasha of the Gemara.
Oh yeah?
So yeah, basically,
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Not the same thing. It's a way of looking at things. Like it's perspective.
Good.
It's good, I can say.
I got a ticket. I got a ticket. My company's got to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's easy to complain that there's no hagrala. You didn't do this mitzvah, you didn't do that mitzvah. When you look at what you pushing off, it makes it a lot harder. You shechted an animal to go to the Kodshim Lashem.
Hope you won't give an issue.
That wasn't an issue.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot to let you know before.
That's fine. Thank you.
I was just kids.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't have it as clear. While I was going through the daf, it got clearer for me. Just now.
Yeah, me too. A little
bit. When you do still limit Torah barabim, then that's the way it goes.
I've always find it to many people. They say lilmaid or lilamed. There's two different lilmaids. There's learning to learn and there's learning to teach. The lilmaid lilamed is a higher darga of limud.
Right.
It's a different limud. You see that, but Paul.
Right, it's true, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
All right, I got to go back to this.
All right, Yashikayach, I have to give you props for tonight. I was really struggling tonight.
No problem. It's fine.
And you got it across, Yashikayach. It was Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right. Good night.
Good night.